In this video lecture, I'm going to be covering 24.2 Animal Evolution and Diversity. So I'm going to talk about animal clades and what they are, and then show you a cladogram, and then talk about chordates. So cladistics is a system, or basically a study and shared characteristics that have been derived from common ancestors. So basically what that is saying is if you were given like a group of various animals, your job would be to kind of like whittle it down, like what do all these organisms share that they don't share with this one? Okay, so I'll start off with the hagfish. Okay, so this hagfish is considered an outgroup, an outlier, because it doesn't really have a lot of the traits that we see in all the other organisms. Okay, but then we see the presence of jaws. And so that means from this point on, all these animals have jaws. Okay, so perch, salamander, lizard, pigeon, mouse, chimp. Okay, now this order, it could go in any order, but we have more traits to whittle it down. Okay, so then lungs. Okay, that means fish would be first. So the presence of lungs, all these animals have lungs. Claws or nails, salamanders don't. The rest do. Like everything down here, they don't have claws or nails. Presence of feathers, fur, and mammary glands. So you basically have to include a common ancestor. So like this point where mouse and chimps diverge, that's the common ancestor. Common ancestor between pigeon, mouse, and chimp would be whatever organism was here. And so on and so forth. Okay? All these organisms shared a common ancestor here. And that probably diverged, if not millions, billions of years ago. So my question is, do invertebrates form a clade? And even though when you look at this diagram, you don't see any invertebrates, but yes, invertebrates do form a clade. So let's dive into it. So the earliest of animals, for about 3 billion years after prokaryotic cells evolved, all life was basically single-celled. And our current hypothesis shows that animals may have evolved from a protist called the cyanoflagellate. Okay, this is a cyanoflagellate. This is a protist, aquatic organism called cyanoflagellates. When you look at the cyanoflagellate and compare it to a cell of a sponge, they look very much the same. Okay, they have these collar and a flagella tail that whips around, and they both filter feed. And so protists can be eukaryotic, and cyanoflagellates are. Okay, so they think that our earliest animals diverged from cyanoflagellates and possibly evolved to sponges. That is the current hypothesis. Evidence for multicellular life, because remember, animals have to be multicellular, come from microscopic fossils roughly 600 million years ago. So here in our Proterozoic, we see the Dachatu fossils. Okay, but then here we start to see a little bit more complex life. So this is our microscopic, but then things getting a little bit more complex. You had a carrion fauna located in Australia roughly 565 to 544 million years ago. Shows body plans of animals different from anything that is alive today. Very unique body plans, but we don't see them around anymore. However, when we look at them, though, they seem to look like jellies or worms. Okay. Cambrian explosion occurred a couple million years after that. And this is where animals really evolved some complex body parts. And these body plans, I said parts, I meant to say plans. These body plans are still around today. Okay, so starfish appeared, worms, trilobites, sponges, fish without jaws or fins, jellyfish, mollusks. Some of these organisms, we still see very similar body plans today. And so by the end of this period, modern clades have been established. Now there's lots of reasons why the Cambrian explosion occurred. I think like oxygen concentration levels was one, and just temperature too, but I'm not sure if your book goes into that. So here's the cladogram we're going to try to get through with our invertebrates before we get to here, chordata. We'll start off with sponges, okay? And then sponges, they don't have true tissues, okay? So all these organisms have true tissues. And we'll talk about cnidarians, and then we'll talk about bilateral symmetry. And then we'll hit the body cavities, segmentation, endoskeleton, and then we'll end up with chordata. So cladogram of invertebrates starts off with sponges, porophora, which means pore barriers. They are the simplest in the clade metazoa. Metazoa means animals. They are asymmetrical. Cnidarians are your jellyfish, sea fans, sea anemones, hydras, corals. Very obviously all aquatic, soft body carnivores. And we see radial symmetry with them. So Amphizoa, Cyphozoa, Starzoa, Cubozoa, Hydrozoa, this Portuguese man of war. Arthropods include your spiders, centipedes, insects, crustaceans. We see lots of segmented body parts. Exoskeletons made of chitin. Cephalization, a head, lots of sense organs. Jointed appendages for lots of different ways to move. Crawling, swimming, flight. Okay, bilateral symmetry as well. Nematodes are your roundworms. They are unsegmented worms. They have specialized tissues and complete digestive system. Flatworms, tapeworms, and flukes belong to a phylum called Platyhelminthes. Very soft, flat, and unsegmented. They don't have a true body cavity. And they don't really have a true anus. Now, I have a video here about flatworms, but I'm not going to show it because it is about how flatworms will fight with each other, and the loser has to become the mom. But if you take college bio, we will really dive into this. Annelids are your earthworms, leeches. They are segmented worms. Mollusca, snails, slugs, squids, clams, octopi, soft body, internal, external shell, and a lot of complex organ systems. And then we have your echinoderms, which are your sea stars, sea urchins, and sand dollars. And echinoderms means spiny skin. So they do show a radial symmetry, 5-part radial symmetry, but in their larva state, fun fact, it's bilateral symmetry, and then it turns into this pentaradial symmetry. Internal skeleton, the calcium plates that support them are on the inside, covered by the spiny skin, and they move through something called the water vascular system, kind of basically using hydraulics of the water to help them navigate in their environment. So that's invertebrates in a very, very short period of time. Moving on to chordates, 6 groups. First group is called non-vertebrate chordates. These are your tunicates and lancelets. These organisms are considered chordates because they have that dorsal nerve cord, they have a notochord, they have a tail, and they have a pharynx with slits. They just don't develop the vertebrae, the backbone part. Okay, so they are considered non-vertebrate chordates. Fishes appeared 510 million years ago. It started off with jawless fishes, hagfish, and lampreys. We also see cartilaginous fish, chondrichthyes, where jaws and fins evolved. So examples of cartilaginous fish are your sharks, skates, and rays. This is a hagfish, and so I'm going to show you a video on them.
Now it's recording. We have 180 seconds.
So hagfish hang out on the bottom of the ocean floor, and they eat dead things, but they secrete a slime when they feel threatened or if an animal tries to eat them. So he just took a small amount of the slime and mixed it with the water.
Mixing apparatus. Let me hold it up.
You have to back off a bit.
And then watch what happens to the beaker of water.
Okay, go for it.
It literally turns all into this mucus slime. So hagfish, one of the greatest, I'm sorry, but it is probably one of the greatest defense mechanisms in the world, because if this slime gets into your gills, if you were a fish or a shark, you would suffocate and die.
It is empty. Turn the
And then
beaker
the
upside
hagfish
down
will
and
eat
pour
you.
it out. Nothing.
None of there's another video here.
At the bottom of the ocean dwells a bizarre-looking creature. A fish so ancient it has remained unchanged for 300 million years. This is the hagfish. Its velvet-smooth skin lacks scales and slithers along the ocean floor. It has a skull, but no spine. Tiny holes run along the sides of its wriggling body, some for breathing and some for sliming. But its most bizarre feature is its mouth. Like something out of an alien movie. This jawless maw is made for mincing up dead bodies. Multiple rows of sharp teeth are packed on 2 bony plates. With its single nostril, it picks up the sweet scent of death. A feast has arrived. It has no fins, but its paddle-like tail makes light work of swimming. The hagfish latches on, and its mouth goes to work. Flesh is ripped from the carcass and shoved down its toothy throat. Soon, it's a frenzy of multiple mincing mouths. And to keep other hungry onlookers at bay, the hagfish excrete copious amounts of slime into the water. A shy shark snatches one, but ends up with a mouthful of snot instead. In minutes, the hagfish will strip the carcass to bone. It may be months before they find another meal like this.
All right, bony fishes. 2 groups underneath your bony fish, ray-finned fishes and lobed-finned fishes. But I'm going to focus a little bit more on lobed-finned fishes. So when you look at fins, ray-finned means that there's no bones in it, okay? But lobed fin, there are bones within the fins. And so underneath lobed-finned fishes, we see lungfish and coelacanths, but one group evolved into our tetrapods, which are 4-limbed vertebrates that could go on land, okay? And so here is our ray-finned, and then the coelacanth lungfish, okay? And now this transition organism called the tiktaalik, its fossil was found way up here in northern part of Canada, and they think that this is the transition fossil between fish and amphibians, which leads us to amphibians. Amphibians means a double life. They're still tied to water. So you notice that when we started this journey of life, looking at all the animals here, it starts in the water, and we've been in the water for a long period of time, and now we're seeing adaptations that allow organisms to live out of the water. So they start off in the water, and then they transition to land. They do need water for reproduction. That's where they'll lay their eggs, and they breathe with lungs as adults. They use their moist skin to help make up, because their lungs are kind of small. They don't have scales or claws. But there's 3 orders of amphibians: the salamanders, frogs and toads, and then the caecilians. The caecilians, basically underground amphibians. Their eyes are useless. They just look like a giant worm, basically a salamander that has lost its limbs, and they just burrow into the ground. Reptiles: dry, scaly skin, well-developed lungs, strong limbs, shelled eggs. They are ectotherms. They use the environment to help regulate their body temperature. Some examples: lizards, snakes, crocodilians, turtles, tortoises, tuatara, and birds. And I'll talk about that in a second. Birds are not reptiles. They belong to the class Aves, but birds did evolve from reptiles. So we'll talk about our dinosaurs here. Lots of different dinosaur species during the Triassic and Jurassic periods. They were herbivores, carnivores, family groups. They showed parental care. Some actually had feathers. And so adaptive radiation just means lots and lots of diversity. But then dinosaurs were wiped from the face of the earth during the Cretaceous period with the mass extinction, combination of natural disasters. They think maybe a comet or an asteroid struck off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, causing volcanic eruptions, sea level changes. So, yeah. So with the top dogs, top predators wiped out from the face of the earth, it did give rise for smaller organisms to shine, to take over this new habitat, this new niche. So birds, so dinosaurs are part of a larger clade of reptiles, but modern birds are also considered reptiles. Our first bird-like fossil is the Archaeopteryx, and you can kind of see that here in the fan feathers. Characteristics of birds: strong, lightweight bones. Okay, adaptation for flight, feathers, two-scaled covered legs, wings, and endotherms. When Jurassic World came out, there's the opening scene of the bird that lands on a bit of snow, and it's zoomed in on the legs. You can't see that it's a bird. You just look at it and it looks like it's a dinosaur, and then they zoom out and it's a bird. And I was like, that's a good one, Jurassic World. That's a good one. That's a good opening. So dinosaurs gone. Small mammals, did it coexist with the dinosaurs at the time? They were the size of rodents, but now that they're gone, it gave way to them, the age of the mammals, if you will. So what is a mammal? A mammal has mammary glands, they have hair or fur, and four-chambered hearts, and they're endotherms, which means that we maintain our own body temperature. But the first mammal existed roughly 220 million years ago, very small, nocturnal, so that it wouldn't get eaten. But then dinosaurs became extinct, and the Cenozoic era brought the age of the mammals, and we see that the mammals become very large, some of them big predators, big herbivores. Now we group our modern mammals into three major groups: the monotremes. These are egg-laying and only found in Australia and New Guinea. So the platypus and four species of echidnas. How they nourish their young. Yeah, they do have nipples, and then they ooze the milk outside the nipple, and the young will lap it up. So, and I think their milk is pink. Marsupials is a second group. This is where the young is born, and then they go into an external pouch. So when they are born, they're literally miniature versions of themselves. So like a kangaroo, think about the size of a kangaroo as an adult. Now imagine it roughly 2 inches tall, okay? And it looks like a little baby kangaroo, like a toy. You can kind of see that right here. So it will go inside the pouch and just kind of latch on and complete its development there. Placentals is the third group, embryos that develop completely inside the mother. So we are placentals. Baby develops inside of us and then is born, but still requires parental care. And that does it for animal evolution and diversity.